Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. Topping our newscast, Danny strengthens into the first hurricane of the 2015 Atlantic hurricane season. Tropical storm Danny has been upgraded at 11 a.m. The center of Hurricane Danny was located near latitude 12.5 degrees north, longitude 44.8 degrees west. And Danny could experience some additional strengthening in the next 48 hours. How would Danny affect us? Well, the National Hurricane Center issued its complete advisory at 5 p.m. today. And Bernie has the latest weather update, and tune in later. We'll have more on the weather. Now, Governor Kenneth Mapp was on Straight Talk with host and former Senator Holland Redfield on Thursday. The governor talked about a number of issues, and the approaching storm was one of them. He said early in his term, he was able to see FEMA resources in Puerto Rico firsthand. He also met with the governor, so he reassured the community of the VI's hurricane preparedness overall, especially with the coming storm. News 2's Erica Parsons has that story.
Tropical storm Danny is now a hurricane, strengthening into the first major windstorm for the 2015 season. Local officials are keeping their eyes on Danny.
I met with Governor Padilla to talk about our relationship and issues having to do with the storms. And in point of fact, at 4 o'clock today, him and I will be on the phone talking about Danny and how we're going to mobilize our resources.
Governor Kenneth Mapp appeared on the Straight Talk with Redfield radio show Thursday. He said local agencies have already been meeting to discuss the territory's response.
The potential, not necessarily opening yet, but we've already designated where we will have shelters and shelters that may be able to accommodate pets. The Department of Human Services will be talking about issues with meals and our senior citizens and our young community.
FITEMA has been tracking the system since Monday, sending out advisories to the public. It's still not clear what Danny's impact will be to the VI, but there are typical things residents need to remember.
We're going to be talking to folks about looking in their properties, about securing things that can fly around and blow around so you don't get your windows broken or your neighbors are not damaged, how you secure your vehicles, if you have things up in trees, lines.
The governor says he has plans to meet with Puerto Rico's governor to talk about a regional response to disasters. For now, the governor says the territory welcomes the rain, but nothing else.
This is a smaller storm. There are some expectations in the area that by the time it gets around the Virgin Islands, it could, there is a potential that could weaken a bit. If the winds are not horrendous and the storm continues its path and maintains its size and the synergy that it is now circulating with, I'm sorry, I'm going to be on my porch welcoming the storm.
Erica Parsons, News 2.
Meanwhile, WAPA CEO says the WAPA team has been briefed and they stand ready. HUD shared an update for customers after a WAPA hurricane preparedness meeting convened on Thursday. Here's more.
Make sure we got data for the amount of fuel supplies that we have, water and the storage. Everything is adequate. Everything is where it needs to be. Some is even almost a capacity. So we are in good shape right now. All the crews are ready. All the employees are ready. We want to encourage the residents to remain vigilant of the storm's path and maintain the steps to remain safe. And in doing so, they see down power lines, assume they're energized, and call the Water and Power Authority. In the event we do or we are hit by a storm and it's one of significant size, we'll put our call centers into operation. We'll then send those numbers out to the public so we can take calls from the general public as far as what they have seen or any outages they may have. But the general message from the Water and Power Authority is to please be safe, and we are already ready to report to duty in the event we're needed.
Innovative also reminds customers that in the event of a severe weather, keep these few tips in mind. Customers should refrain from moving or cutting down lines on their property or in the vicinity of their homes because they may be active power lines, telephone lines, or cable TV lines. For customers who are on the new EVO network, during a commercial power outage, the EMTA battery backup for telephone will last up to 6 hours of talk time. CEO's Sean O'Donnell said the Innovative encourages customers to use telephone service during these times on an as-needed basis. The use of the telephone should be reserved for emergency purposes only to retain the maximum amount of talk time on the battery. You can give them a call for more information. Lieutenant Governor Osbert Potter is encouraging Virgin Islanders to also be prepared by having adequate homeowners and flood insurance. He said insurance companies were asked to voluntarily lower their rates. Potter, who also serves as the territory's Commissioner of Insurance, advises property owners to review their insurance policies and contact their agent or the Division of Banking and Insurance for changes or questions. Remember, you cannot buy a homeowner's insurance policy once a storm has been declared. For more information on disaster preparedness, you can visit www.ltg.gov.vi. Well, on Wednesday, Governor Mapp also took action on quite a few pieces of legislation that were forwarded by the 38th legislature. A lot of them were approved, but the governor also executed his veto power on some of them. One particular amendment that legislators and the community have been keeping watch on was also vetoed. News 2's April Knight has details.
Now, Sandy, remember that amendment that the Senate inserted into a bill reducing the salaries of Governor Mapp's cabinet nominees back to 2014 levels? That section would have effectively denied the salary raises promised by the governor to his cabinet. Well, unsurprisingly, the governor vetoed that section, standing by his decision to raise his cabinet salaries. The governor informed the Senate of the decision in a transmittal containing his action on some 15 bills altogether. The salary reduction was the legislature's way of confirming the 11 remaining nominees so they could get on the job while also still opposing the raises. Governor Mapp in the letter said that veto needed no further explanation, but in a radio talk show Thursday, he did elaborate.
I understood and understand the outcry of the community that, we don't have any money and the employees are not getting paid, and nothing shouldn't change, that you should, keep the status quo. And then the legislature's attempt to codify what the salaries ought to be, as if the salaries that were there on December 2014 was some magical number.
Also in that letter, the governor approved a series of bills allowing the government to borrow $20 million more to cover the current year's deficit, but would mean a second property tax bill issued this year. He did acknowledge the Senate's resolution appealing to the U.S. Congress to repeal provisions of the VI Code in relation to the governor's residence. Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
The territory has received more than $4 million to help build small businesses. It's part of the state Small Business Credit Initiative that's designed to help grow and create jobs. News 2's Erica Parsons has that story.
The Economic Development Authority was awarded $4.3 million by the U.S. Treasury this week.
This is a grant that the U.S. Department of Treasury granted the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority to assist small businesses in their access to credit. And the total grant amount was $13.1 million, and this is the second tranche of that money.
It's part of the State Small Business Credit Initiative started in 2010. The federal funding helps to grow small businesses and create jobs.
If the loan is short of collateral, for instance, we'll guarantee up to 50% of the collateral shortage, which allows now the commercial bank to make that loan to the entity. So it's actually the commercial bank is making the loan to the entity, and we're guaranteeing that loan to the commercial bank, which provides that access to capital for these small business entities.
Locally, EDA officials say prior funding has led to the creation of more than 100 jobs and kept more than 400 people employed. So far, the territory has received $8.6 million from the initiative. They've used $3.5 of that to support small business growth. The monies released this week was the second disbursement from the U.S. Treasury. Officials expect a third installment in the near future.
We have to show the U.S. Department of Treasury that we're using this money and using it correctly. So when we're about 85% through this money, we do an audit. And once the U.S. Department of Treasury is satisfied that we've met all the requirements, then they will release the third and final tranche.
Erica Parsons, News 2.
In crime reports on St. Thomas Wednesday around 9:32 a.m., a robbery occurred at Signature Jewelers in Havenside Mall. According to police, the store owner told them that at 9:20 that morning, her eldest son was opening the rear doors of their business when a black male walked into the business, pointing a gun at her and the other employee. A second man proceeded to close the front door. The two men then demanded money and jewelry from all inside the establishment. The pair collected an undisclosed amount of cash and jewelry from them and then tied up everyone with duct tape. The youngest son was also threatened at gunpoint. Call 911 if you have any information. Police say around 1:39 p.m. Thursday, they met with a 37-year-old male victim of a robbery on St. John, who stated that he'd gotten onto a safari bus with two young, slim black men, and the trio disembarked from the safari at Southside Road in the vicinity of the exit for the barge ramp. At some point, he became engaged in a physical altercation with the pair, who he said struck and kicked him repeatedly. The two men then removed the victim's wallet from his rear pants pocket, containing cash, credit cards, and personal IDs as they left the area. Officers conducted a search and recovered some of the IDs, but not the wallet. On Tuesday, two St. Croix men were arrested on charges of unauthorized possession of firearms on Company Street in downtown Christiansted. Around 5:53 p.m., Dean Schneider, 21, of Harbor View Apartments, was arrested and charged when officers discovered a .45 caliber Glock 30 in addition to a 9mm Taurus with an obliterated serial number in his vehicle. Bail for Dean Schneider was set at $25,000. The second arrest took place at 6:24 p.m. when Amid Williams, 20, of Estate Working Rest, was arrested in connection with the arrest of Schneider. Bail for Amid Williams was set at $25,000. Also, Tashimo Scotliff, 33, made his initial appearance in district court Tuesday after being charged with 2 counts of possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number, 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, possession of ammunition by a convicted felon, and possession of an unlicensed firearm, as well as reckless endangerment. According to the indictment, Scotliff was found in possession of a firearm after he was convicted of first-degree assault larceny. He's charged with violations of both federal and Virgin Islands law. For the federal charges, the maximum sentence for possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number is 5 years in prison and $250,000 fine. Well, day 3 of the trial of former Internal Revenue Bureau Director Louis Lolo Willis, Bible construction owner Gerard Castor was called as a witness for prosecution. Castor's testimony implicated Willis, basically stating that during the years when Willis signed off on documents saying Bible Construction was current in its tax filings, the construction company was in fact delinquent. Willis's actions, the prosecution claims, allowed Bible Construction to understate its tax returns by about $3 million. The former IRB chief is charged with defeating or evading taxes, fraud, and making false statements. The murder trial of William Hyde has been delayed and now scheduled for September 8th. A decision on whether to admit into evidence a hard drive submitted to the court is in question. Nakai Cologne, Jelani Gums, Deano Brooks, Khalif Francis, and Jaquan Joseph were scheduled to stand trial in April 2014 and then again in October 2014 in connection with the beating death of Hyde, 65, at Megan's Bay Beach on November 23, 2012. Brooks, in January, pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. The remaining defendants are facing charges of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, assault, use of a weapon in a violent crime, kidnapping, possession of stolen property, and aiding and abetting. Count on 2 to keep you updated. Well, keeping our eye on the economy, here's the New York Stock Exchange with our Stock Market Watch. Everything down. The Dow down 358, NASDAQ also down at 114, S&P 500 43. Coming up on News 2, the Department of Planning and Natural Resources is asking for about $19.7 million for the next fiscal year, but almost half of that would be federally funded. Details coming up next. Welcome back. Officials from the Department of Planning and Natural Resources, led by Commissioner Don Henry, faced the Senate Finance Committee on Tuesday to defend their fiscal year 2016 budget. Commissioner Henry also took the opportunity to update the Senate on progress in some of the department's major initiatives. News 2's April Knight has details.
The Department of Planning and Natural Resources is asking for about $19.7 million for the next fiscal year, and almost half of that would come from federal funds. Only 35%, or $6.8 million, would come from the VI General Fund. Half of the total budget would go to personnel and another quarter would go to fringe. Some senators did express concern about the department's 30 vacancies.
What's your time frame in plan on filling those positions?
Well, there isn't necessarily a time frame, but as I testified earlier, we have started the process. It's ongoing.
The department also reported on some major initiatives addressing the red mud situation and rum fungus on St. Croix. Notices of violations were sent to VI Rum and Diageo a week ago, according to DPNR, on the rum fungus problem. DPNR also detailed its response to the sargassum problem and got praises from lawmakers on the way they responded to the tragic poisoning of the Delaware family on St. John. According to the department, they're also looking to open Fort Christian on St. Thomas to the public very soon. Phase 1 of the project is finally completed, and now Custom Builders, their contractor, is moving on to Phase 2.
Doing the repair work while the facility is open, we see that as an attraction. So when folks are touring the facility, they can actually be able to, from the outside, see what's involved in renovating a historic structure.
For News 2, I'm April Knight.
The Community and Police Association, CAPA, in conjunction with the Red Hook Community Alliance, conducted a town hall meeting for residents and commercial establishments of Red Hook, Nada, and Friedenhoy last week at the Paradise Cove Resort. It was an opportunity to voice some concerns, opinions, and viable solutions. Now, in attendance were Mara Leonard of VI Waste Management Authority, Patrick Farrell, Senator Rocky Liebert, Patrick Sproul, Lieutenant Sandra Colburn, Zone C Commander, and Sergeant Canal of VIPD, and about 40 residents and business owners. The next meeting is coming up in about 2 weeks. The 5th annual Parent Empowerment Retreat began today on St. Croix and continues until the 22nd at DV Carina Bay Resort. The 3-day retreat is designed to promote, empower, and support parents of children with disabilities to become knowledgeable and engaged. Meanwhile, the 5th annual Parent Conference will be held on Sunday, September 6th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Marriott Frenchman's Reef Resort on St. Thomas. That one-day event is free and open to all parents and guardians with students enrolled in public schools. UVI's fall semester orientation week for new and transfer students began Monday and ends Saturday, August 22nd. Sessions are designed to help students adjust to the academic and social aspects of college life. New students received a medallion designating them as members of the university. Convocations were followed by welcome receptions for the newly minted UVI Buccaneers. These were the events that transpired during the week. Students moved into their dormitories Monday on St. Thomas and Tuesday on St. Croix. A new student convocation Buccaneer welcome reception was held on Wednesday and Thursday and on St. Thomas and St. Croix. For more information on UVI's orientation activities, you can call their public relations at 340-693-1057. Well, as we discuss back to school and back to classes, there's still some time to get some summer fun in. Here's something to consider on your list. When it comes to extreme water sports, jet skiing is one that most families do as a hobby. Jet ski rentals, of course, are available on St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John in single and double riders. Jet ski tours are available, and that includes stopping at snorkeling spots. Concerned about safety? Well, each company will provide information. However, everyone is mandated to wear life jackets. There are lanyards that are placed around the wrist, attaching you to the handlebars of the watercraft. If you accidentally go overboard, the string, the lanyard, attached to your wrist will be pulled out of the handlebar, switching off the engine. The handle of the jet ski is a button that sends an electrical signal to the engine's ignition, which starts the process of turning the motor. Caribbean Cultural Fest 2015, presented by Virgin Islands United, Inc. That takes place on Sunday, September 6th in the Jackie Robinson Park in Harlem, New York City. The event takes place from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. and it is completely free to the public. The event is the largest celebration of Virgin Islands music and culture in North America and features a star-studded cast of music performers, including VI's headliner, Pressure Buzz Pipe. You can visit www.virginislandsunited.org for more information, but we will have more on the huge event later next week. Be sure to stick around. An update on your weather coming up next.